I call the meeting of the Urbana Historic Preservation Commission to order. Could we have roll call, please?
Scott Dossett.
Here.
Matt McClaff.
Here.
Alice Novak.
Here.
Gina Pagliso. David Seiler.
Here.
Trent Shepard.
Here.
Roll is taken.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Next item is approval of the minutes from our last meeting on December 3rd.
Oh, yeah, one more.
Oh,
You have a Smith on there?
Oh, Kim Smith.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
sorry about that.
Thank you.
Yes, so the next item is minutes of the December 3rd meeting, regular meeting, the last time we met. Are there any additions or corrections to those?
I've got some little issues with that.
Yes,
Yeah.
Trent, little issues. Let's hear them.
Well. Oh, wait a minute, yeah. All right, there are a couple places. All right, so on page 4 of the minutes, next to the last paragraph, Mr. Deering went on to talk about whether the house was really constructed by Joseph Royer. I'd say designed instead of constructed there.
It's good.
And then in the next sentence, it says, proves it was not constructed by Royer. Change that one too. And then on page 5, the last paragraph, in the middle there, it starts out, the 20% rehab incentive tax credit is available for incoming generated, should be income.
I'm sorry, where's that again?
Page 5, the last paragraph.
Yep.
It says toward the right side, incoming generating properties, and then that happens again on the next page toward the end of the 3rd paragraph. I'd change that to income producing properties. So that sentence says, anyway, it goes on, he believed that if the property is sold, then it would probably become an income producing property, so they would be able to blah, blah. It seems to me that that's kind of vague what he's talking about there, and I would substitute, instead of so they would be able to receive incentives, maybe put the new owner, because we're talking about both the sorority and the potential new owner in the same paragraph. Anyway, that's just a little thing. And then the paragraph above that, where it starts at, well, the second one on that page, Mr. Engstrom pointed that the landmark nomination, I'd stick the word out in there. And same page, 3rd to the last paragraph, the one that starts out, Mr. Metcalf. I think that first sentence is a mess. And it says, Mr. Metcalf stated that the large addition in 1963 agreed that the design is in harmony with the original structure. I get the idea there, but it needs to be straightened out a little bit. And then on the next page,
We could probably just change that to say that Mr. Metcalf stated that the
design
1963 edition
is in harmony
is
with that's what it means, but it's
Right.
kind of messy there. Then the next page at the top, we're talking about I think Alpha Rho Chi fraternity over on First Street,
Yes.
but we just call it the Alpha Rho House. I think we want to put Chi in there so it identifies it correctly.
Sorry, which paragraph?
On top of page
Oh,
7,
yes.
the
Okay.
Alpha Rho House.
Okay.
And then about the middle of the page in the Ms. Smith paragraph, right exactly in the middle of that paragraph, it talks about a conical roof. I'd change that to conical, probably you're talking about that tower, I think. And that's all.
Wow. Impressive. Anybody else? Probably not after that.
No.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the minutes as corrected?
So moved.
Second. Moved by Mr. Dossett, seconded by Ms. Smith. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. The minutes as corrected are unanimously approved. Do we have any written communications?
No, we do not.
Okay. We have no audience, so that'll take care of that. No continued public hearings, no old business, no new public hearings, no new business. Next, we have monitoring. Oh, no, that's right. Next, we have monitoring of historic properties, including the Colvin House.
Yes, just a quick update. We received an application for a certificate of appropriateness for the Colvin House, just to replace the bricks on the front stoop. And that was reviewed by the zoning administrator and the chair and approved.
Okay, any questions?
Are they still doing things there? I mean, they had some major renovations for a while. Is it?
I think it's just about done, but there were just particular problems with the way the bricks were on
Yeah.
the entry was starting to collapse.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to approach the commission and have a little discussion about the 204 West Main property that was demolished in the attempt to preserve the facade next to Corson's. I don't know if you've all had a chance to look at this. I know I emailed Jeff and Libby got back to me. But I'd actually asked that staff add an agenda item for this, and maybe it didn't merit that, and the agendas had gone out, so that's okay. But if you haven't noticed, there, right across from Busey Bank, we have, a tooth gap in the block there. And
This is right next to the library, right?
No. This is on Main Street.
Oh, on Main, I'm sorry.
Before it splits, going down the ramp there, right by Pizza M and Corson's.
Yes.
That facade that was so visible from the back, like if you were coming out of the Courier, and was meant to be preserved in a demolition that I believe Matt Cho was doing. I think that's the correct pronunciation of his last name. At some point in time, they must have ran into some kind of structural fault in the facade. I mean, the entire rear of the building had been removed. And it seems as if the position that we're in now, and I don't want to be unfair to staff at all, and there are probably things I don't know, is that we have, what you could argue is, 20% of one of the remaining historic blocks in downtown Urbana, which will be constructed with a new facade that we have no control over. Now, that's not a historic district. But I think the take-home here is that there's no kind of review for downtown Urbana at all in terms of those building fronts down there. And, what I've been able to find out is there's been sort of a low-key effort to try to have some kind of design review there that may go back as much as a decade. And, I think at this point in time, we have no guarantees what will replace that section of the block, very visible from the intersection of Race and Main Street. And we're pretty much relying on, and I think we probably can trust the property owner, but I just wanted us all to be aware of that and to see, ask staff where we were in the context of what kind of plans Mr. Cho has submitted. Are we going to be able to get off the dime and do a design review area for downtown? Of course, my concern is that the same thing could happen to the property next to that and next to that and next to that, and we'd essentially have no control over what those buildings are being done. And I'm as much into property owner rights as anybody else, but I think that's a real salient feature in downtown Urbana, what those storefronts look like. So.
Sure, I can address that. So, yeah, there was several questions, I guess. In terms of that property, 204 West Main, the plan was for him to preserve that facade. And when the demolition made its way up to the facade, the engineer looked at it, and they decided that in taking off the roof, that the facade would not be able to, would not be structurally sound. And that's why they had to take it down. Mr. Cho came to City Council for an amendment to their development agreement, and they amended the agreement to say that that facade in particular needs to be replaced with something that's in character with the rest of downtown in that block. The language doesn't specify any architectural features, but it does give the city power to review what that facade will look like. So that will that'll be coming for staff review as soon as he gets it designed, which he has not done yet. Sorry. In terms of the Greater Downtown Design Review District, we are making progress. We actually just had our first staff meeting on that project last week, and we've assigned the roles. We're going to start the process, and you'll be hearing more about that very soon in terms of opportunity for input. But for this first month or so, we're just doing our basic research, looking at design review districts in other cities, and doing a survey of our downtown, doing a photo survey, trying to tally up the different architectural features that are common to our buildings. But we will be moving forward with the public process for our downtown design district that will be some kind of, it'll have definitely design elements in it. We're not sure if it will be a form-based code or a hybrid, or just an overlay district, similar to what we have in East Urbana and West Urbana along Lincoln and Busey. But we are hoping to make some progress, and towards the end of summer, hopefully we'll have something to implement for that.
Yeah, great, thanks. I know you may be a structural engineer, but I'm guessing that you're not, so this may be an impossible question to ask, but I wonder if we've learned anything about really the feasibility of doing these behind the facade removals, or if we know how those have worked in general for other people who have attempted them. I mean, I was really disappointed to see this thing start to come apart. I mean, you know, the big rock saw kind of from the top, just because it looked like such a cool opportunity from the back of the building, and in so much as that might be, that the facade may be reconstructed and look exactly like the one that was removed, it would be all right. But I guess I have to wonder whether we know enough about the character of these old interlaced brick buildings to really be able to predict whether this is a reasonable approach to take in terms of adaptive reuse,
Yeah, it's a good question, and you're right, I'm not a structural engineer. So I don't think we'll see a lot more of these demos that just leave the facade. Hopefully we'll be able to preserve the entire building for any future reuses of downtown buildings. That's the hope that we'll have. In terms of the integrity of our building stock, we haven't done a detailed survey of all of our buildings. We considered looking into a grant to possibly do that, but in talking with other towns, we found out a lot of other towns have found out that if they do a very detailed survey, they find out that some of their buildings are need to come down, which is not something we want to have, basically. So we want to try to be proactive about protecting our buildings, but not try to force anyone to get detailed engineering studies that could have a negative result.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks.
I had a quick follow-up on that. Did the engineers that went forth and did the study, they said that they were surprised that they'd gotten all the way to that front? Was that not and again, I'm not an engineer either, so I don't know, but is that not something that would have been studied by engineers prior to the wrecking ball coming in?
They, from what I understand, they did a preliminary study before they started the demolition of the entire building. And from the outside, from the front, it looked okay, but they couldn't get in and see the inside of the facade. And so when the walls came down and they were able to examine it, that's when they were surprised with the condition.
Thank you.
Did they save the metal trim around the windows? I mean, that was some of the original trim work, I believe,
Not on the second story?
on the second story.
Oh, boy.
I can follow up on that. I'm
I think that,
not sure.
And was there a demolition permit originally? Was it demolition, or did they count it as a remodeling since the whole thing wasn't coming down in the original idea? Do you know?
I believe it was a demolition permit.
So there would have been
for the
that
interior.
demolition delay, and we would have gotten a notice about it.
No,
and
it
that-
doesn't apply to
doesn't.
commercial buildings or buildings
Okay.
in the TIF.
Okay, there's no circulated
Right.
information about upcoming things. It's all
Well,
in the background.
if you're on the email list for the demo notice, it should still come across that, I would think.
It would be on, okay.
But there's not a delay as per the demolition
All right.
delay ordinance for those
Okay.
buildings.
All right. So there would have been, people would have known that there was something going. Seems like I might have read about it in the paper or something.
I don't recall.
Maybe they were talking about what they were gonna do in that space,
Yeah.
but I can't picture the article.
Yeah, this project did receive a development agreement with the city, and there's some financial assistance through the TIF for the redevelopment of the site. So there were public hearings and I think articles in the newspaper.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful place to go look at still. I mean, I took a half an hour or so and kind of, walked past the tape a bit and looked. And, I mean, anyone who's interested sort of in the evolution of buildings and building materials, I mean, the place is like a micro lab because there are places where the wood just comes out from God knows where, and then there's metal in other places and stuff like that. And I'm not an architect nor an engineer, and I don't really understand it, but I think it's instructive to really look at it closely because it shows you, how complicated some of these structures are. Multiple additions with windows being removed and then things blocked up and spaces kind of, shunted around and sort of squeezed together. And I think it's probably a realistic example of what all of those buildings look like on the inside, which we have an opportunity to take advantage of right now in terms of what we think about these historic buildings in downtown.
You go.
I was just going to ask, what happens in a situation like that? Who's responsible for repairing the Corson's brick wall that's now exposed, which it was an interior wall? I'm just kind of curious how that.
I'm not sure. I'm assuming it's Mr. Cho. So.
And I'm trying to picture what the building looked like. It's funny how, I worked across the street from that building for 15 years, and is that the one?
It was Gatchi's.
Gatchi's? Didn't he, the first floor anyway, remodel the heck out of it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, I can picture it better now. Oh, okay.
I thought it was one of the older buildings in downtown.
I'm sure it
Manhattan.
was, yeah.
Like, I want to say Civil War era.
Oh, boy.
See that metal trim on the windows?
Isn't that stone? It's a stone.
No, I
No.
think it's metal.
Hmm.
Those little things that stick out up
Yeah.
there?
Hmm.
Yeah, the top was kind of left alone and the bottom was,
Yeah, what bothered me, even 8 months ago, is that the interior floor for, 15 or 20 feet was just kind of hanging on that facade. And I was having a hard time figuring out exactly what they were doing or why they were stopping, and this site wasn't protected very well. So I don't know, it's just been a concern of mine
That was
for
bracing.
many months.
I think you bring up a good point too, Scott, is that it makes you wonder if there's something that we can do to discourage other actions like this that could have the same end result. Because you're right, from what I can tell, there's not anything in the way from other people saying, "Oh yeah, we're just gonna facade the whole block and build all new buildings behind it," and then oops, everything came down. That's the way it goes, and then we look like downtown Champaign. And who wants that?
I'm gonna read a little bit from a memo that was put together on amending the redevelopment agreement, just so you know how the demolition proceeded. So this says, the demolition began at the rear of the building and slowly progressed southward toward the facade. The original plan was to complete demolition up to 10 feet from the facade and to then proceed with stabilization efforts. However, observations of the exposed interior by the structural engineer led to concern about the facade's integrity, and demolition activities were limited to a distance of 25 feet from the facade to ensure stability. Further observation by the engineer resulted in the conclusion that, quote, the south wall requires removal and will likely suffer partial collapses during demolition.
And that the report, the engineer's report, is available on the city website. We can send you the link. What's the date on that?
This is, and I actually have this on a, pardon me. I have this on a flash drive in my bag as well, if anybody has a flash drive or wants to take it home tonight. But the date of this memo was January 8th, 2014, so this would have gone to the council the Monday after that, I suppose.
2014?
Unless that was... Oh, sorry, 2014?
It was
Is that
it
right?
was this year. It's I think
Yeah,
it's a
this,
typo.
sorry, this is that is a typo.
Any other questions? No. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the staff report.
Yes, so as you all know, as part of our certified local government designation, we submit a report every year to the Illinois Historic Preservation Association. And I just wanted to briefly run through the report that we're going to be submitting this year. It wasn't a terribly active year. There was only one Historic Preservation Commission meeting in financial year July 2013 to June 2014. The commission at the time was pretty much the same as you see it today. Matt Metcalf joined in May of 2014, and there was a retirement. Joan Stoltz retired, I guess prior to July 2013. Staff, we had some turnover. So if you look at the report, you'll see quite a few names listed on who provided staff support. I guess pertinent to this, to the heavy lifting that had been done by staff, that was the year that Robert Myers left in October of 2013, and then Rebecca Bird left just the following, I guess, the following month. So there were 6 certificates of appropriateness that were reviewed that year. I believe 5 of them were administratively approved. I'll just run through those real quick. So at 502 West Elm Street, there was a COA to install gutters and downspouts That's otherwise known as the Sutton House, and that was administratively approved as minor works. Right next door at 504 West Elm, the Freeman House, there was a C of A to replace a square wood base beneath one of the front porch columns. That was also approved as a minor work, or as minor works. At the Urbana Landmark Hotel, we had two building safety issues that were approved administratively because they were a threat to public safety. So one of those was a screen fence, which was in imminent danger of collapse, that was on the roof. And the other, so that was allowed to be removed in its entirety. The other was to remove some trim that was in imminent danger of falling off the side of the building. So there was a C of A to replace that trim in kind. And then also, again, at the Freeman House at 504 West Elm, there was a C of A to replace the entry and exit porch for the side door. And that was replaced, that was approved for them to replace it as a replica porch using new materials, but that would be historically appropriate. So that was approved by the HPC on January 8th, 2014. The final C of A was to replace the red asphalt roof shingles at the Tiernan's block at 115 West Main Street, to replace those with red asphalt architectural shingles. And again, that was approved as a minor work. This financial year, or the year of this report, was the first appearance of the designation, or wait, oh no, sorry, it was carried over from the previous year, was the designation of the ZTA house. And so that was, in this fiscal year, that was denied by the city council at the end of the day by a vote of 4-3. And I guess since this commission hasn't met since the last time, I'll report to all of you who don't know that the ZTA house was designated by the city council. Sorry, that's a bad joke. Typically we have surveys, but Alice, I guess your class you didn't have your class that year, so there weren't any additional surveys. No National Register nominations. There were a few plaques that were installed at the Smith Russell House, the Colvin House, and the Eli Halberstadt House. And that's pretty much all that wraps up that report.
Has it already gone to IHPA?
This report?
Uh-huh.
No, it hasn't. So
okay.
You all received copies of this and can make any suggestions for
So
improvements.
The CLG requirements are that the commission has to meet 4 times a year.
Correct.
So do they look at calendar year for that rather than the fiscal year? Hopefully.
I think they do, yes.
Because I think we've always been careful to meet 4 times during the calendar year.
Yeah.
Right.
So you might want to add a clarification in at the top where it says that we met on only one occasion. It's just on the first line on the first page.
Okay. Well, I guess technically that would be true during the months that they're
period,
looking
but
at.
maybe
Just to add something that says we did meet, we met this many times during calendar year
Yeah.
2030. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
I assume that the CLG requirements pertain to the calendar year instead, but, and then also on page 3, under number 5, monitoring, we've been really good about adding things to monitoring. There may not be anything officially on the agendas, but we almost always at every meeting have complained about something. Well,
Talked about
I don't-
something.
monitored something. So I don't know if we can you have somebody look back at minutes or something to see?
Well, there's only the one set of minutes which
Oh, that's
were
true.
attached, and I'm not sure if I recall anything from those.
Okay. Okay, so under training then, I think it was that summer, June 13th, am I in the right fiscal year? Oh, no, I'm after that, never mind. Anybody else? Trent?
Just, it prompted, when we had the plaques here, were you putting those up at one time, Dave? Are you, you're still doing that? Okay.
The Elm Street ones got kind of mixed up somewhere, so I think they were being ordered, is that right?
I thought so. I think Max actually was handling part of that. So
Yep, I looked into that. A past employee with the division had written down that they had been ordered when in fact they had not been ordered. And then we were in communication with the owner of the 2 homes on Elm Street in regards to when they would like to see that installation occur. And at that time, they were still completing work. So we're planning to return to those properties in the next few weeks to check on the status and then get back in touch with the property owner.
Right, so we don't have those plaques.
No.
And,
Other questions?
well, it was just kind of an observation that we had 6 requests for C of A's, and 5 of them were reviewed administratively. And so when the time on an administrative one, from the time that they make a request to the time that you 2 people meet and approve it, is that a matter of days? Or so when people once in a while complain about, oh, how horrible it'll be, how everything will go so slowly, it's a
That's a good
matter
point.
of, you know, within a week or less probably
Right.
for most of the requests. Okay.
Yep, no, that's a very good point.
Yeah. So it's generally not a burdensome thing. You don't usually have to wait a month.
Right,
Okay. And that's the end of my observations.
okay. Any other observations? Nope. Anything else from staff? Oh, yes, CLG grant.
yeah, so initially we were actually going to submit a CLG grant request to do sort of structural integrity study for downtown, because I think that's been something that has been talked about for years. So that, you know, going back to this case on Main Street, but when I talked to, as Jeff said, other communities and to the IHPA, it sort of discouraged us. The CLG people basically said, if you did something like that for an entire area, you'd have to talk to a structural engineer, of which there are maybe a handful. I think they were a little less optimistic in the entire state that could really do the kind of survey that we were looking at. Most structural engineers, they told us, would say that buildings are unsafe a lot of times, even if they are safe. So you really need to have folks who are experts on this. So the idea of doing that sort of survey was dismissed. So instead we submitted, as I think I mentioned at our last commission meeting, we submitted a grant to create some interactive web maps that would highlight our historic properties and districts and tours and such. So we were given that grant. We were informed of that pretty recently. So we're working through the administrative side of things. We signed the contract. You know, the mayor and Libby signed the contract, sent it off to the IHPA, and so Jeff and I are working on getting an intern hired and settling in on a timeline. And so there will be more to come on that later. And if you all have any ideas for what you'd like to see in some sort of in a web map that might be interesting to have there, please let us know.
Did you have any sample ideas from other communities we could take a look at, or?
There isn't a whole lot. In the searches that I've done, I haven't found anything that's been terribly impressive, which means we don't have much to go off of, but which also I think means we could do something really, really nice and be the envy of other communities. That's not why we're doing it, of course. We're doing it to benefit historic preservation here, but it would still also be nice for other people to see.
One of the main reasons we wanted to do this project was to have a map that showed all of the 100 most significant properties on one map. The way our city website is structured, it doesn't allow for us to do that. So we'll be doing this external web map. The way, if you go to the 100 most website portion of our website now, there's a list of the 100 most significant properties, but you have to click on each one to get a map of where they are. So we thought it would be good to bring them all on one map, and that way people could see, hey, I'm right by these 2 properties that are significant. I should go check them out.
What's the depth that you're kind of looking at for the 100 properties? Are you thinking just like a picture or just a brief description or access to the National Register nomination? And how much are you thinking about putting on there?
So right now, each of the properties has a web page that has a photo and a pretty decent description, and then links if they're a local landmark at least. I don't remember if we have the National Register nominations or not, but we're hoping, that through this project, the map would have you'd be able to click on a property and have a pop-up window with a photo and a brief description and a link to the longer description.
Are there opportunities for people to contribute, for citizens to contribute their thoughts or memories, something that's a little bit more, I guess, less document-oriented and more maybe geared toward historical memory, that sort of stuff?
That's a very good idea. I think that's kind of the next level, perhaps. This grant we received was only for, what was it, 3,500 total? So.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Understood.
So we'll be taking advantage of some student labor on this one.
Well, and down the line as a thought, then maybe like use this as the base and then continue to build upon this map through, then if we're just doing historic properties in this particular instance, then we can do districts or we can do other areas that may not necessarily be considered historic yet, but maybe in the wings, those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think the idea is to make something that's showcases what we have, but can also be built upon. That's always at the, not in the back of my mind. That's sort of towards the fore. Yeah.
The other thing too, maybe we want to make sure that it's mobile accessible because if people are doing walking
Absolutely.
tours. Yeah.
Yeah. The original idea was actually like an app, but
Oh, nice.
I think with the way web mapping is and how you can get web maps that easily translate into mobile maps, the app seemed like overkill and probably less able to be built upon.
Okay. Any other questions about the grant? Trent?
Just talking about the properties got me to thinking about those, are they podcasts or what are they called? But is it all of our historic landmarks that have had them done, or is it just some of them? I can't remember.
It's some of the 100 most.
No,
yes, but
well, do all of the landmark properties have them?
I'm not sure.
No. I think there have been a few new landmarks since those were started.
And was that 2 summers ago we did those? Maybe. Was that
don't remember
another
exactly.
CLG? Oh yeah.
Yes.
That
That
was.
was another grant to do those things. All right.
Yeah, and we actually mentioned in our grant application that we might be able to incorporate those podcasts, like for properties that have those already recorded. I don't see any reason that you couldn't click on something that would allow you to listen to those podcasts.
Yeah.
Depending what we do too, it might be worth partnering with the Champaign County Archives at the Urbana Free Library. They have a ton of resources, and maybe they have information or images or biographical accounts or diaries or other things that really would encourage people to engage deeply with the historic aspects of our community.
Yeah, it's a
And
good
I'd
idea.
like, if we do more of those podcasts, I'd like to just put in a word for Matt, for maybe being a person who would do a better job of reading those texts than I did.
You did
And-
a fine job.
Anyway, I just put a thought out there.
Intent.
I'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good idea, but you did a fine job.
Talk to the editor on how much work you had to do.
Yeah, I'm not sure how often they're available for the properties that are on the 100 list, but like, for example, the Sanborn maps, I think are just as cool as it can get, you know. So that would be a neat panel to have as part of a site.
Okay, great suggestions. Anybody else? Comments or anything? Nope. Anything else on staff reports?
Nope, that'll do it.
Okay. Are you looking for a separate intern to work on the website, the web map?
Yes, we're looking for someone with some coding abilities and some design background, hopefully.
Okay. Okay, we have no study session. Next item is announcements. Anybody have any announcements?
I'll throw out a blurb. I just recently renewed my Route 66 license plates for the state of Illinois. So
Nice.
anyone who wants to support some of the historic preservation efforts in the state, that's a really easy way to do it. It's I was looking it up on my phone here. It's $40 is what you pay above and beyond the standard plate fee. So very reasonable. Definitely worth checking out on the Secretary of State's website.
Great. Thank you. Any other announcement things? I'll throw out just one thing, I guess. May traditionally has been National Preservation Month, and it's been so long since we've had an activity and such. So I just want to throw out that maybe since we're not meeting that much, that maybe as a commission and not burdening staff, we could try to figure out a fall tour or something. And maybe we could even work with the City of Champaign Commission or, you know, do something to coordinate some events because we really haven't done things that have been that visible in a while, I guess. So maybe that could be a reason to meet at some point, that we'd have a working session or something. We could brainstorm on that. Trent?
About that, remember we had that was it Main Street and Elm Street?
Yeah.
Was there another tour that same year that PACA organized?
I don't think that same year. It's been years since we did the PACA tour. I could look it up.
Were we with PACA? Were we involved with?
No, our tour was just on the outside.
Yeah.
And we did a couple of those, I think. And then PACA did a tour that was really well publicized in local media, and that accessed interiors of some of the Main Street houses.
Yeah.
We could, I'll throw this out as an idea, and it would be great to have a session, so if that, yeah, count me in for that. You know, maybe we do something, since adaptive reuse is so hot right now. Maybe we can look at some of the ways that people have effectively incorporated updates that they want to include in a 21st century house while maintaining the interior and exterior integrity of their historic structure. And maybe we can get citizen submissions for that too.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. And then what Scott had mentioned too about the Sanborn maps being fascinating. It's been a long time as well since we've done a how to research your own house kind of session, and we did one at the library ages ago. So it might be we could get a few people together to do a couple-hour session on that, and then that in turn might encourage people to write their own nominations and things. So anyway, so next time around, whenever we meet, if that's May or June, if we could just have some brainstorming.
I hope it's May.
Yes.
I would like the
At least
Preservation
we should.
Commission to
All
meet
right,
in
so no,
Historic Preservation
we should.
Month.
That's true. Yes, we should meet in May for Preservation Month. Okay. Any other thoughts on that? If not, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Scott Dossett, seconded by Kim Smith. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned. Thank you.